Welcome back to ConFusion Still Confusing, a virtual component of ConFusion, a science fiction and fantasy convention held in Novi, Michigan on January 22nd, 2027 to January 24th, 2027. You can find the con's information at 2027.confusionsf.org. Today's discussion is about Creating Songs for Fiction by Clif Flynt, Gabrielle K. Byrne, and TK Rex.
Hi, I'm Clif Flynt, best known fanishly for writing folk songs. I've had a novel published and a number of short stories. And I'm here with a couple of other people to talk about how we put songs and story into our world building and into our novels. You guys would like to introduce it? Gabriel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. I am Gabrielle K. Byrne. Most people call me Gabby. I have two traditionally published upper middle grade fantasies, Rise of the Dragon Moon and The Edge of Strange Hollow. And I'm also a fantasy book coach. You can find out more about my work at GK Byrne, books.com. So TK, over to you.
Hey everybody, I'm TK Rex. I have probably about 20, 30 short stories out there, and my first actual book came out a few weeks ago. It's called The Wildcraft Drones. It's a collection including several new short stories. And I think today we'll talk more about my forthcoming book, my second one, which is called The Cursed Blade of Wek. It's a sword and sorcery novella, and it's expected next year from Neon Hemlock.
Fantastic.
Yeah, sounds like fun. You mentioned that briefly in the world building panel at the Nebula convention.
Yeah.
You're using street musicians to pass coded messages around the city.
Yeah, well, you'd asked about at the Nebula's use of song and world building, and that was the one recent example that really was like a world building detail, not just sort of like a fun character thing. Yeah. I think that's the only example I actually have of that. And I gotta be real, I'm not like a huge music person. I just thought it was a really cool idea. I do have a little bit more music that I work into my stories every once in a while, but I know very little about music relative to most people.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, my background is in medieval literature, and then I did actually go to music conservatory my first year in college, performance vocals, but I didn't end up staying in that field. I was drawn back into literature, but I do feel like, my very, very deep love of oral tradition, and like looking at Beowulf and the Epic of Gilgamesh and all of these sort of the Eddas that are from the Scandinavian tradition. I love them, and I love the idea of people sitting around a fire, telling stories and passing on history. And so I'm really, really drawn to that. And I do in both my books, and in a lot of my writing, I like to use that sort of poetry and the cadence of language to explore origin stories or to convey sort of hidden, not, I love the idea of that you're using sort of poems to convey messages, TK. That's fascinating.
Yeah. I should I talk a little more about it or let the
I
next question come up?
Sure.
Okay. I was kind of like it was this idea that was in the back of my mind for a while because like I sort of live in this like interesting part of San Francisco downtown where there's a lot of street activity and people like roll around these big like speaker systems and boom boxes like all day just like blasting music. And I was like, how interesting it would be if there were coded messages in this, which like may or may not be happening. I don't know. That's not my purview. But like in this world, which is the story is set in a city, which is very much inspired by San Francisco, especially in the wake of the Grants Pass decision, if you know what that is. It's very much about like the housing crisis and the prison industrial complex. But that's going to be a bigger topic than our podcast today. So, under this sort of like regime of police brutality, the characters in my book belong more to the creative scene of that city. They're the artists, they're the musicians. And so what the thing that the musicians start doing is playing like out in the street, and they start encoding little messages about like where the police are within their songs. So there's real time information going out to people in the neighborhoods. And I just thought that would be a cool little way to work some artistic subterfuge into it.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
like that.
Absolutely.
So my background, I've been doing music since I was in grammar school and writing songs since I was in my 20s. So my novel is a medieval, but non-fantasy. So at one point, my hero gets sent out to spread the king's propaganda, that a disastrous little war wasn't his fault. It was pushed on by one of his underlings.
Right.
And he is sent to the bar that is favored by that underling. So he will get in a fight to convince him that he really needs to learn some weapon craft too. So it's kind of doing both.
Well, it calls to mind also, I don't know, for some reason, I think it's because you mentioned the prison complex, TK. I was just thinking, like our whole SOS Morse code system, right, is could be conceived of as rhythm, and the idea of communicating through walls and like through knocking, right, and knocking on pipes, knocking on walls, tapping, all of those sorts of things. I think there's a lot of sort of layered in meaning there, based in history and based in just the way that humans are drawn to sound.
Yeah. Oh, there's a whole history with like encoding messages into song in the history of slavery in the US and probably elsewhere as well that I've heard of. I don't know all the details, but like I it's not my idea originally.
Yeah, but it is super fun to play with that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so far as historical goes, one of the reasons that Genghis Khan was so successful was he sent the musicians out first, explaining just exactly what he was going to do to you if you resisted.
Yeah, right. I mean, propaganda through song as a preemptive war effort is huge, right? And maybe worth considering again. I don't know, right? I mean, in terms of peaceful approaches, right, it's very powerful.
Yeah. Tokyo Rose comes to mind, and half of the songs in the late 60s.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, song has such a huge protest history as well.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of ways to look at it the other way too, of examining like the song, the music that gets like tons of more industrial, not industrial music genre, that would be great. But like the music industry has its own motivations and its own influences as well as a corporate structure, and not always for the positive. So the kind of stuff that gets reinforced by that sometimes has large negative societal effects as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you mentioned the rhythms and you mentioned industrial. That also what plays into what music is what your society is. Pre-industrial, you didn't have as many strong beats. One folk singer described English country folk music as in the time signature of one.
No, we're talking about the Industrial Revolution, not industrial music as a genre.
Yeah, the Industrial Revolution really pushed us into bing, 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 bing instead of bird melodies.
Yeah. There's a strong argument to be made as well for the correlation with colonialism happening around the same time that then incorporates more rhythmic music from other cultures.
One of my favorite pieces of world building was one that Gordon Dixon did in his Dorsai books. When you meet the friendlies, you hear their anthem, Soldier Ask Not. And it's Soldier Ask Not now or ever, where to war your banners go. Anarch's legions all surround us. Strike and do not count the blows. And he never tells you they're militant religious zealots, but you know.
Yeah, right.
Have any favorites outside of your own books where people have used the music to build the world?
I saw this question in the advance email, and I don't remember it as well as I should. But there is song in Anne Leckie's Ancillary Justice trilogy, which I thought was a cool part of the world building, like when I read it, and unfortunately it's now been long enough that I've totally forgotten it. But the one that really like digs into my like millennial heart is so, and this goes back to Hans Christian Andersen as part of the story, but in The Little Mermaid,
Oh, of
um
course.
the way that literally her voice, her song has been weaponized against her, as like someone who's been a creative professional and like took out loans, student loans to like work in a creative industry, and like has tried to make that like um that talent and that creative pursuit a huge part of my life. Like I think back to that so often, just the way in that story, like her voice was literally like taken from her and weaponized against her. So we hardly get to hear her sing at all, you know, and
Right.
even though it's supposed to be her greatest talent. And I think
Yeah.
about that a lot.
Yeah, I love that. I didn't come up with one that incorporates song that that jumped out in my mind, but poetry for sure. I mean, there's been a huge surge in sort of novels written in verse.
Mm.
And one of my favorites from recent years is a YA novel by Joy McCullough called Enter the Body, which is about Shakespeare's heroines all meeting after their own deaths in the trap room of the theater and sort of comparing notes, right, on their lives. And also, I mean, it's just a huge gaggle of girls, right? Because Shakespeare's heroines are by and large very young. And so they're all sort of comparing notes about their lives and telling one another off and trying to come some kind of consensus about what's happened here and like what's to be
Mm.
done about it all, and it's just such a wonderful examination of Shakespeare, but examination of feminism and of women's place in society and young women's experiences with love and family. And it's very funny, but also quite sharp. And it's in verse, and I absolutely adore it and recommend it.
That sounds amazing. You'll send us that link.
Yeah, I'd love to. What about you, Clint?
Um, yeah, that was one of my favorites. I also liked what Peter Beagle did in The Last Unicorn
Mm.
with
Oh,
this there. I got a chance to talk to him once at one of the SF cons, and I asked him. He put tunes to all of the songs that were in there. He actually wrote them all for real.
Amazing.
Yeah,
That's one of my all-time favorites. I'm a big fan.
yeah.
Yeah.
And apparently, the tune he used for When I Was a Young Man was not the Ash Grove,
Oh,
even though that's what everybody sings it to. Um, but yeah, I do that with my stuff. I put in. I write the full songs and have the music for most of them. Um,
yeah, I don't have my second book. There's a lot of warding happening. There's, my heroine lives on the edge of this sort of um, fairy tale forest. It's called the Grimwood. There's all kinds of dangers, both known and unknown, within the forest. And then there's various villages that are located around the outside of the forest. And the villagers are afraid of the forest. They don't go in. My heroine, Poppy, her family hunts cursed objects in the forest. And so they're really outsiders from the get-go. And the villagers use sort of warding spells and it's poetry and song. They sing, they use bells, they have all of these sort of superstitions and methodologies to keep the bad things away, right? And part of the conversation throughout the novel is like, does this really work? We're not so sure. Like, um, what works, what doesn't. So that was a lot of fun to play with and, included some warding songs, I guess you could call them.
Nice. I can't believe I only like just thought of this. This is how my like last month has been. But like Tina LeCount Myers has a whole fantasy trilogy. The first one is called
Yeah.
The Song of All. And like there's a whole huge part of the world building. I should have like invited her to be on this. I feel like such a dumbass now. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, Tina. Oh God. But definitely The Song of All is a fantastic novel set in this like Scandinavian inspired secondary fantasy world. And
Ooh,
there's
wow.
these elf-like beings that have a song that's sort of like also a secondary reality for them that holds their ancestral knowledge and their identities. And it's a whole thing. And it's actually incredible. It's one of the most like intricate uses of song in fantasy that I've ever heard of.
Oh, I'm absolutely gonna read that.
Yeah.
Drop a link in the chat if you would. I dropped a
Yeah.
link in for Enter the Body, which was the book I was talking about, and also for my website. But yeah, and then in Dragon Moon, I did a lot of interstitial sort of origin poetry, stories, about both the queendom in this story, the queendom's perspective about dragons and their history with dragons, and then also several that relate to sort of the dragon hierarchy and how they function. Um, so that was a ton of fun as well. I think there's so much leverage you can get out of poetry and song to enrich your world and to also develop your characters. And part of that, I'd love to hear your perspective on this too, TK, is sort of the space in those poems or the space in those songs, the downbeats and the rests and the pauses, the heavy pauses, to point out where things aren't known or where they are absent or where, there's room for misunderstanding that you can explore in other ways and other scenes. I love that. I love that absence so much. And that was something I think I mentioned on our panel at Nebula's too. But it's just fascinating to me how to explore those.
What I've usually seen for poetry has been pure lyrical. Um,
Mm.
Iambic pentameter, broken, yeah. Do you know of anybody that's used things like William Carlos Williams and breaking lines in funny places? You mentioned space. Um, and
Yeah.
that makes me think of the more modern poets rather than the ones who write something you could sing.
Yeah, I'm not coming up with specific examples, but I do think that the novels in verse that are coming out in middle grade and young adult, there are novels that are playing with form and with breaks to kind of instigate thinking in particular ways. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I will say that every time I try to pull off something like that, editors don't have any of it. They're not going for it.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Understood.
Yeah. Maybe I'll get there at some point.
Yeah, it's not my strength either.
Yeah.
And I just dropped the name of one of my favorite books, but early on, our hero goes into Beowulf's castle and has to sing a song, and he sings the saga of Bowie Gizzardsbane and the Alamo to a bunch of Norse. And he does it in Edda fashion, where it is broken lines and alliterative and kenning, and the
Mhm.
publishers printed it as just straight lines. And they completely broke what the lyric form is.
Mm.
If you read it and you know the scan, you know what, and you pronounce it in Ida. I always thought it was Edda, but what that form looks like, it reads that way.
Mhm.
But yeah, I can understand the publishers don't like funny things. I have had that fight a bunch with my publisher to try and get things formatted correctly especially when I was doing things in an Edda format and get the two broken lines with a space in between them, not jammed together.
Yeah. The poets get away with a lot.
It's true. Thank goodness. Thank goodness they do.
We need them doing that for us
Oh,
very
absolutely.
much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else that would be fun to talk about?
Oh, I know we had a list of questions. I guess I thought
Yeah, let's see.
I guess I thought you were in charge, Cliff. Sorry.
Okay. Um, okay. When you're doing these, do you compose the full song or do you actually just write the snippet that you need?
For me, I focus on the snippet, and I think only in my second book, The Edge of Strange Hollow, did I actually think about the tune itself. But even there, it's a snippet. Um, yeah, but I think there's room for more of that. I'd love to see more of that. It sure is a lot of fun. How about
My
you?
plan for, yeah, my plan for promoting my Barden Sigurd series is to record the songs and make them available Bandcamp or something.
Oh, that's fun.
That would be super cool.
Yeah.
I definitely like have only focused on snippets so far. I'm not really like a musician or a songwriter of any kind. That would be extremely aspirational for me to pretend. So um but no, it kind of made me think of my partner Gary is a musician and like he had actually like composed some like tracks. He does like synthesizer and guitar stuff. He composed some tracks for my book launch for the Wildcraft drones last month. And it was just very cool. And I really want him to get them up on Bandcamp actually, so I can link to that. But it hasn't happened yet.
I love
I
that.
think it's so freaking cool when that happens. And I just
That's
have
so
so much
cool.
like respect and admiration for people who have that skill and talent.
Absolutely. Well, and then, that did remind me, I do know there are a lot of authors, again, I think a lot more in the children's literature space, the young adult particularly, that are sharing playlists along with their books, right? So that
Yeah.
are sharing full playlists of what they were listening to and being inspired by, or what they see as sort of the soundtrack of their book. And I think that's a really interesting new sort of multimedia space, right? That readers can buy into and enjoy with this story or without it. And it's kind of it's a fascinating and fun way to enrich the story.
Yeah. You know, that's
Yeah.
giving me ideas. I thought of like the typical like playlist of music for my next book because it's definitely got a little bit of a heavy metal vibe. But for the wildcraft drones, it's all kind of just like nature sounds. Like I write always to nature sounds because like lyrics kind of interfere with they run an interference pattern,
Same.
you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I have this like app that I use that's free that I really love. It's called My Noise and
Oh,
mynoise.net. I'm giving them some free promotion now, but like
very
I get a lot
nice.
out of them. So that's where I could like sort of link to some of the sounds, the nature sounds I
Love
was
it.
listening to for the wildcraft drones. That would be really fun. I should do that. I'm taking a mental
That's
note.
so fun. That's so
Yeah.
funny. I almost always write with thunderstorms,
Ooh, love
thunderstorms in the
them.
background, and
Yeah.
or swamp.
Yeah, that's my favorite
I
combo.
love a swamp. I love a swamp soundtrack.
Definitely.
And the one I've been using is a ambient mixer dot
Ooh.
com, I believe.
Okay.
And that's super fun. You can like pick your sounds up to 8 of them and then layer them and change the levels and all of that kind of stuff and keep it as a soundtrack, I guess. So,
Nice.
I've got one that's got like rowing and like heavy ocean swells and storms. So it
Oh my
sounds like
God.
we're, off in the middle of the ocean on a Viking ship or something.
The
Um,
no the novel I'm querying right now is all set on an ocean planet. And so I
ooh,
listen to a lot of ocean sounds writing
I'll
that.
share the soundtrack with you, TK.
That sounds
It's a
great.
pretty good one. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I'm the same way. I can't write with lyrics playing. I get too
Yeah.
distracted. Um, because they have meaning, right? Like that's kind of what we're saying
Yeah.
here is that, you incorporate those lyrics for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I have the same problem. And it's back in college, I would listen to stuff with lyrics while I was working on math problems and
Mm.
sing along to them. It annoyed my roommates because I'm wearing headphones, so I won't bother my roommates, and then I'm singing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time doing like graphic design and related stuff like that. And when I'm doing that kind of work where it's more visual thinking, like love lyrics, like all kinds of music, it's great. But the writing, it just whoosh, messes everything up.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Well, well, we've kind of chewed up a half an hour, which is
Yeah,
Wow.
no problem.
yeah. I didn't think we were going to have any problem with that.
Yeah.
Um, but
Well,
this
thank
is
you for having us.
oh, thank you very,
Yeah.
very much for coming. I'm glad I met you guys.
All
Yeah,
right.
same, same. It was a fun conference, and this has been a fun conversation.
So
Yeah.
do we want to do outros?
Outros?
Sure.
Absolutely. TK, you go first.
Okay. So the book I've been talking about the most is called The Cursed Blade of Weck. It's coming out next year, probably in March from Neon Hemlock. And right now they're just getting ramped up to do their like regular Kickstarter for their novella series. So I'll drop the link for that. Everybody support them. They're a great small indie press. And my current book that just came out is called The Wildcraft Drones. It's a collection of solar punk short stories. And I am querying a novel if you happen to be interested in that.
Nice.
My links to my short stories and my newsletter and socials are all on my website, tkrex.wtf.
Hey. I have a middle grade book on sub myself.
Ooh,
So we'll see how that goes. It leans horror, so that's kind of new zone for me. About a girl who finds a kitten in the swamp and brings it home to care for in secret and discovers it is not a kitten.
oh my God.
Um, hot tip, don't pick up kittens in the swamp. And then I've been working on an adult fantasy about the fates that I'm kind of pitching as chaos meets Frozen. And so that's super fun, and I hope to share that with people, in the not too distant future. Don't have anything coming out right this second, but if you visit me at gkbyrnebooks.com, you can hear about my books that are out, which are here behind me, Rise the Dragon Moon and Edge of Strange Hollow. And you can find out more about my book coaching business, in which I help other writers write fantasy.
Ooh,
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my novel Promised Rewards came out from Dark Myth a few years ago. The sequel, Simple Penance, I'm going to self-publish real soon now. Um,
The universal real soon.
yeah.
yeah, the plan was this year, and then after the Nebula and finding out how much stuff I should have done before I even thought about this,
Mm.
it's maybe next year.
Mhm, mhm.
I've got short stories and unidentified funny objects, books from Dead Fish Press and Triangulum. And my website is cflynt.com, cflynt.com. So again, thank you guys for joining me.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks so much
you.
for having us.
Been fun. Nice to see you both.
Really fun.
Yeah. Okay. So,
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Thank you very much to Clif, Gabrielle, and TK for this amazing discussion. Again, you can see more discussions like this at ConFusion in Novi, Michigan, and all of our information is at 2027.confusionsf.org.